There are many reasons to envy people who are coming to Doctor Who for the first time. Twitter user @DamonsMatt has reminded many of us recently just how brilliant the Stephen Moffat and Matt Smith era of the show was, and it's been a thrill to experience it all again through their tweets. But once you're properly into Doctor Who, you start to ask yourselves much bigger and more detailed questions. We know that there are questions that must never be answered, but there are also those that can never be solved in a satisfying way either. So I'm Ellie for Who Culture, here with 10 important Doctor Who questions nobody can answer. Number 10. Can Time Lords regenerate into animals or aliens? To be honest, regeneration could take up this entire list. How does it sometimes change the Doctor's clothes? How can the Doctor and Romana choose their future faces? But most pressingly of all, can Time Lords only regenerate into British character actors? Generally, yes, that's mainly what we see after all, but there are some hints throughout Doctor Who history that suggest otherwise. For example, just before regeneration, the 9th Doctor speculated that this next incarnation could grow another head. The 11th Doctor also checked to see if he had a full set of human anatomy in the end of time. And then of course there's Destiny of the Daleks, in which Romana regenerates into a small blue alien and an 8-foot tall goddess. Meanwhile, other media like the lockdown webcast, The Secret of Novice Haim, has even suggested that the Doctor can become an animal. So while it may be possible, we'll probably never get a definitive answer on whether the Doctor can be an animal or an alien. And you know what? That's probably for the best. As fans, we freak out when the Sonic Screwdriver gets an update. So God knows how we'd handle Doctor Who. You get it? You get it? Number 9. What's life actually like on Gallifrey? Gallifrey has to be more than endless political scheming and studies at the Academy, and yet we've rarely seen the world beyond that. So what is everyday life like on the Doctor's homeworld? What do they eat? The 12th Doctor eats soup in Hellbent, but from what meat and or vegetables? What animals are grazing on all that red grass? Did the Doctor's parents grow any crops? Furthermore, Gallifrey is a whole entire planet, yet all we ever see is the Citadel. So what's going on elsewhere? We know that there's Arcadia, the second city, and that there are the indigenous Shobogans who live a simpler life on the land. But that's about it. Hilariously, it was revealed in Terence Dick's novel The Eight Doctors that the Shobogans run a pub underneath the Gallifreyan Citadel. But sadly, we've never seen the Doctor visit Shobogan Weatherspoons on televised Doctor Who. And we're not likely to see Ncuti Gatwa hit the dance floor of Gallifrey's hottest nightclub, not least because the Master blew it all up again. Everyone's always more concerned about the mythology of Gallifrey instead of the small-scale detail that makes it a living, breathing fictional world. No wonder the Doctor left it behind. Number 8. What happened to the Thals? Remember the Thals? Doctor Who doesn't. The Thals fought a 1,000-year war with the Kaleds, which ended with the creation of the Daleks. We met the Thals in Terry Nation's first ever Dalek serial back in 1963, in which the pacifist Skaro natives were forced to take arms against their old enemies. Years later, the 3rd Doctor and Jo met a group of Thals who were planning to destroy a Dalek base on Spiridon. After their successful mission, the Thals set off for Skaro and were never heard from again. The 1988 reference guide, The Official Doctor Who and the Daleks book, claims that the Thals abandoned Skaro at an undisclosed point after the events of Planet of the Daleks. While this has never been confirmed on screen, Terry Nation's involvement in writing this book does lend a degree of canonicity. However, later spin-off media suggests that there were Thals living on Skaro at the end of The Magician's Apprentice, even if Davros and the Daleks seemed blissfully unaware of this fact. So where are the Thals? Off-world colony? Hiding in a secret location on Skaro? Wiped out in the Time War? Does anyone have a concrete answer? Russell, we're all ears. Number 7. How does everything stay relative? With at least 17 incarnations of the Doctor flying around the time vortex, why don't they bump into each other more often? Not only that, but why does each incarnation of the Doctor and the Master meet in roughly chronological order? One potential answer for this comes in Flux, when the physical embodiment of time warns the 13th Doctor about her upcoming battle with the Master. Flux built on Stephen Moffat's idea that time was somehow a sentient force, witnessing events and ensuring that they occurred in the correct order. It's why River not shooting the Doctor at Lake Silencio caused the fabric of time and space to completely break down. So is this the answer? A being more powerful than even the Time Lords keeps everyone and everything on the correct path? Or is it the TARDIS itself? We know from the Doctor's wife that the TARDIS is self-aware, so perhaps it knows to keep the Doctor from crossing their own time streams, like a car's parking assistance system. But instead of bollards, it warns about past or future incarnations in the same space and time. The TARDIS could also be synced to local Gallifreyan time, ensuring that Time Lords always meet each other other in order. It's one of those aspects of Doctor Who that becomes more and more headache-inducing as you think about it. My advice? Just pop an aspirin and move on. Number 6. What side did other villains take in the Time War? The Time Lords and the Daleks were the primary antagonists of the Time War. But were any of Doctor Who's other villainous aliens also involved? And if so, on whose side did they fight? We do know that the Gelth and the Nestene consciousness were both affected by the devastation of the Time War, losing their homes and food sources. We also know which aliens definitely didn't take part. In the Sontaran stratagem, General Stahl revealed that the potato-headed warrior race was barred from becoming involved. But that's kind of it. On the few occasions we've seen the Time War on screen, it's Dalek saucers over Gallifrey and soldiers fighting Daleks in the ruins of Arcadia. But warring parties have their allies, right? After all, it wasn't solely the British or Americans who beat Hitler in the Second World War. So which alien races lent their expertise and technology to the Time Lord or Dalek cause? Were Gallifreyan envoys sent to negotiate alliances or non-aggression pacts with mechanoids and Cybermen? Did the Daleks extort or enslave benevolent but powerful races like the Sensorites? You might think that most species would side with the Time Lords, but the Night of the Doctor hinted that the universe viewed them as just as evil as the Daleks. A Time War spin-off could answer these questions, but there's no sign of that happening anytime soon. Number 5. How exactly did the TARDIS explode? The cliffhanger to the Pandorica Opens was utterly thrilling, but one moment gets by on vibes alone. Going into the Series 5 finale, we knew that the TARDIS explodes and creates the cracks in time that have been pursuing the Doctor and Amy. River Song, the best character, tries to land the TARDIS safely and abandon it because, without anyone inside, the ship's engines will power down. No running engines, no explosion. But of course, River ends up trapped inside and the TARDIS explodes, the stars go out, and cue titles. When future episodes confirmed that it was the Kavarian chapter who blew up the TARDIS, this particular loose end was seemingly tied up. It's just that nobody, not even Stephen Moffat, thought to reveal how it was done. So how exactly did Madame Kavarian and the Silence blow up the TARDIS? We see in Amy's choice that this has to be done manually. So when did they come aboard and lay their trap for the Doctor? Maybe there was a Silence standing behind River the whole time. Or perhaps there were some dormant instructions planted in her mind when she went to assassin training as a kid. Look, it's as good an explanation as any. Number 4. Is the Doctor a virgin? The Doctor's virginity is quite a complicated, metaphysical question. While the Doctor may retain memories of previous sexual encounters, their newly regenerated body hasn't done the deed. But to make things even more complicated, are we sure that the Doctor has ever actually had sex? At least in the way that us mere mortals understand it anyway. The Ninth Doctor assures Rose that he's danced, but where are his receipts? From the very genesis of Doctor Who in 1963, the character has never been a hypersexual hero like Star Trek's Captain Kirk or Torchwood's Captain Jack. In fact, for the majority of Doctor Who between 1963 and 1996, the Doctor is presented as an asexual being. Even that kiss in the TV movie comes from a place of jubilation rather than desire. But the Doctor had a granddaughter way back in 1963, so the first Doctor must have, or did he? Try not to imagine William Hartnell doing the deed and consider this. The idea of Gallifreyans reproducing via genetic looms, basically a grow-your-own Time Lord kit which was introduced in 1990's expanded media, has never been firmly denied in modern Who. Number 3. How much of the universe is still standing? On Halloween night 2021, half the universe was destroyed by the Flux as part of a scorched reality policy implemented by Tecteun to protect the division. The 13th Doctor prevented the other half of the universe being wiped out in December of that year, but it's not clear if the initial devastation of the Flux was reversed. Decades earlier, the Master interfered with Logopolis and wiped out a significant portion of the universe with an entropy wave. The toll of the Master's universal genocide is never given a solid figure, but we do know that Traken and its star system are destroyed by the wave, which is eventually halted before it devours the constellation Cassiopeia. So if we combine the destruction of the entropy wave and the Flux, does that make the Doctor Who universe a third of its original size? A quarter? And let's not forget the Time War, which by its very nature would surely have erased planets and civilizations from existence, or restored them by rewriting the events that led to their destruction. Is it any wonder that, to quote the 15th Doctor in Space Babies, the universe is knackered, babes? That's putting it lightly. Number 2. Can you kill a weeping angel? The Weeping Angels are incredibly powerful, and they have a pretty impressive defense mechanism, turning to stone whenever they're observed by their prey. This makes the angels particularly difficult to destroy. They can be trapped, like in Blink, or starved to death, like the ailing angels from Flesh and Stone, but can a Weeping Angel be physically killed? An obvious method to killing a Weeping Angel would be to find something that could destroy stone. Highly charged explosives or a sledgehammer could do the job, which might work if you're dealing with just one angel. However, it would be incredibly difficult to set the charges accurately while keeping your eyes on multiple angels. And even if you succeed in destroying the stone exterior, are you truly killing the angel? In the BBC's Monster Files series, River Song, the best character, revealed that the Weeping Angels had another form and only became stone when observed. So maybe the stone is simply a protective shell for the angel's true form. And if so, destroying that stone armor wouldn't do any good, as the angel could just create more the next time it's observed. Basically, if you ever encounter a Weeping Angel, it's probably best to position yourself behind a reflective surface, then run like hell. Number 1. Who are the Doctor's kids? Let's say that the Doctor has had sex, or at the very least loomed themselves a son or daughter. That child later meets their partner and has a child of their own called Susan. This, of course, begs the question, where and who are Susan's parents? This has been something of an open question since the very start of Doctor Who. The draft script of The Power of the Daleks hinted that the Doctor's home planet had been destroyed by the Daleks. Although this never made it into the broadcast version, it could confirm the tragic fate of the Doctor's child and Susan's parents. Similarly, in The Doctor's Daughter, the 10th Doctor states that he lost his children a long time ago, suggesting that as far as the Doctor is aware, they perished in the Time War or some other battle. Annoyingly, the legend of Ruby Sunday confused matters further. While discussing Susan with Kate Stewart, the 15th Doctor implied that his granddaughter's parents might not have been born yet. Does this mean that RTD has set up a massive loop? A future Doctor eventually settles down and has kids, one of whom gives birth to Susan, who then runs off with the first Doctor? Oh god, pass me another aspirin. Okay, I think it's best we leave it there before my brain explodes. But for some questions and mysteries that actually have been addressed, why not check out 10 Doctor Who mysteries you didn't know were answered? In the meantime, I've been Ellie for Who Culture, and in the words of River Song herself, goodbye, sweeties.